Hello viewers, welcome to my channel. So today we're going to discuss class 12th chapter 1 Indian economic development. So what we're going to learn in it? Interestingly, we will going to learn that how do you turn a wealthy self-sufficient manufacturing giant into a dependent importer of cheap foreign goods. Yes, you heard me absolutely right. The destiny of an entire nation had been in ruins. Welcome to This is India on the Eve of Independence. So, before we begin our journey, you must understand that in this particular chapter, we're going to discuss about how British colonial policy lead India to not just exploitation but on a path of decline. So, let's begin. So, to understand modern India's economic journey, we must examine its starting point in 1947, and that's a necessity. The keys of future lies in history. So we begin with 1947. So let's begin. Before British colonial rule, India was not an underdeveloped nation. It was a flourishing manufacturing hub, famous for exquisite textiles like Daccai Muslin. However, 2 centuries of asymmetric economic policies shifted India's status from a dominant exporter of finished goods to a dependent raw material provider, just a feeder economy for Britain. As noted by researchers like Dr. V.K.R.V. Rao, the colonial framework kept our annual per capita economic growth at nearly invisible half a percent. Just assume just half a percent, and the GDP growth rate it's below 2%. And then the Britishers called Indians poor. It's they who were responsible for all these mess that we are facing today. Look at the image on the left, which mirrors the reality of Zamindari system introduced in the Bengal presidency. Even though 85% of our people relied on farming, the sector faced chronic stagnation. And why so? Because of the British agriculture policy. Cultivators were pushed into extreme debt because of the system was purely extractive, known as permanent system or land settlement system. Landlord had to deposit fixed revenue by specific dates or risk losing their land rights, passing the entire burden onto the peasant, leaving behind the soil that actually feeds them. Furthermore, agriculture was starved of investment in vital infrastructures like flood control, terracing, forcing a shift from food grains to industrial cash crops. And the benefit that was made by the cash crops, particularly like tea or indigo, also got in the pockets of the Britishers. The colonial industrial policy had a deliberate twofold motive. First, simple, turn India into an exporter of cheap raw materials, and second, convert India into a massive captive consumer market for finished British goods. This process displaced local artisans, basically our ancestors, without allowing competitive domestic industrial base to grow. While Indian enterprises succeeded in establishing cotton mills in the West and the TISCO emerged in 1907, our economy lacked capital good industry, meaning we could not build the machines needed to manufacture consumer items independently in our own country. And that's the problem we are facing today. For example, look at the case of General Electricals. They are continuously raising the price for Tejas Mark 1 engines. Why? Because we do not have any such capability and we are paying for it. We are paying for British actions even today. The development of the railways in 1850s is often cited as a key infrastructure benefit, according to the Britishers, obviously. However, historical data reveals that its economic cost outweighs its social advantage. The network were laid out to link rural extraction zones directly to a major shipping ports. Because all other roads were neglected, rural areas remained cut off during the monsoon season, resulting in catastrophic local famines while raw food commodities were actively transported out of the country. The basic motivation of the Britishers was not to make sure that the Indians got the benefit, but just to exploit. Nothing more than that. Deployment of military, breaking the cultural barriers, triggering village instability, commercial risk, and administrative control. So, at the end of the day, all these infrastructure investments were basically for the Britishers, not for Indians at all. When we evaluate the demographic indicators, the human cost of economic stagnations become even worse. Following the transition year of 1921, urbanization and population density rose without corresponding investment in public sanitation or healthcare. Water and airborne diseases were rampant. An infant mortality rate of 218 per thousand was clear evidence. It basically means more than one fifth of all children did not survive infancy. And average life expectancy was mere 32 years, highlighting the deep poverty of the era. And so, as it is, our final slide brings all these sectors together at the shipping ports, highlighting the concept known as drain of Indian wealth. And that's what the key goal of the Britishers, draining the wealth of India. With the opening of the Suez Canal in 1869, British control over trade routes became absolute. They were generally called at that point of time Queen of the Seas, and they used it to exploit India. So, British control over our trade routes become absolute and the India suffers for it. India generated massive export surplus by shipping out wool, silk, cotton, and indigo. Just think about it. Despite being the fact that we are exporting primary goods, still we had a surplus. However, this surplus never returned to enrich our domestic financial systems or to serve our poor or even our citizens. Instead, it was drained away to cover British administrative costs in London, financial finance imperial wars, and purchase invisible imports, leaving Indian economy deeply depleted at the dawn of independence. The Secretary of State, known as White Mughal. Why so? Because of his expenses. And who bore those expenses? Indian. So, I believe that this information will lead you to understand that how British policies exploit India. I hope the information is clear and it will certainly help you in your examinations. For now, it's the end of the video. Please subscribe, share, and comment. It will allow us to make ourselves better. I will meet you in the next video, which will come very soon. Till then, goodbye. Take care.